Hello, 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 everybody. It is Aaron Christensen with Horror 101 with Dr. AC, and today we are once again in our Scare-A-Thon 2022, benefiting the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project. Super excited to talk about the Black Phone today, starring Ethan Hawke. Came out in 2022. It actually premiered at Fantastic Fest in 2021, got a major release this summer. And today I'm going to be talking with Omnivorous Adam, aka Adam Witt, who's going to be rolling in. I'm a super big fan of his, and I'm really glad that you're on the show today. Come on in. How are you, sir?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome.
Right on.
I was commenting that I never actually get to talk to you like for any length of time because we know each other from the gym basically, and like you're going this way, I'm going that way, and then it was last October that I found out you were a horror fan as well, and that like you had the list that you try and get through in October. And I'm like, wait, I do the same thing. So yeah, it's, and then I find out, of course, you're a YouTube superstar. And I'm like, what? How cool is this?
Hardly.
So, yeah. So anyway, so that's the first thing I wanted to talk about is what is on your list this year? Like, what are some of the things you've gotten through?
Let's see what we got here. So little background on the list, right?
Yeah.
So my brother and his wife, and then my girlfriend, Jess, who, and I, we kind of started doing this thing where we want to watch, basically we do our best, right? It doesn't always happen, to watch one movie every night for the month of October, one scary movie, one horror movie. And then we kind of have this idea where let's do a collaborative list on our, through our iCloud, make little lists, like you guys make yours, we'll make ours, and we'll just keep updating and adding to it. And we'll just kind of check off whatever we can slowly over as the month progresses. Now, of course, we don't always get to watch one per night, but we do our best, to make it happen, because this is like my favorite time of year. It's my favorite holiday. It's my favorite type of movie. So, why not? And Jess has kind of, has hopped on the horror train as well. And she really digs it and we have fun with it. So
now she wasn't a big horror fan before this, right? You're kind of indoctrinating her.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But, I don't think she was necessarily a huge horror fan, but I don't think she was like not a horror lover, I guess. Like, I don't think she was given much of an opportunity or exposed to a lot. I know she wasn't exposed to a lot growing up, when it comes to like horror movies and like the classic stuff, so the first, like last year, or two at this point, man, how many years has it been? I don't even,
I was just going to ask you that, like how long you've been doing this?
I think 3 years.
Okay.
I think so. It's quite young. But as far as getting organized about it, right, it's something I've always done since I was a kid. But as far as like writing it out, collaborating with my brother and his wife, and getting Jess involved and stuff, like it's kind of a fun thing that's pretty new. Yeah.
And what were some of like the ones that like got you into horror in the first place? Like what are some of like your keystones?
Keystones. That's okay. So first horror movie I saw that I, at least that I remember well, was The Shining. And I loved it. I like absolutely loved. Well, when I was a really little kid, I used to love like Scooby, and I'm talking like, tiny. I used to love Scooby-Doo and stuff. And my dad would always be like, it was funny because when you were a little kid, you'd be watching Scooby-Doo and you like wouldn't look, or I'd like do this, but then I'd open up and like scream and run away and like run back to the TV and like watch it again. That's kind of how it goes today, just a little modified. I got my move. This is how I cover my ears. Stretch because I'm so bad with jump scares, man. Like I'll accidentally like I get like violent on accident. I'm like, oh, like, it's not good. I hope I didn't just like do that to the mic. But I'm sorry. What was the question? The list. Like
you said The Shining, and then what was right? Was anything else that was kind of a touchstone for you?
Nightmare on Elm Street, practical effects, The Thing. I really liked all those like really old, like, the 80s movies with more practical effects, Hellraiser and stuff. Mm-hmm. When I was like a kid, and I just remember being like pretty freaked out by Friday the 13th and being scared to go to sleep. And I remember the first time that I watched The Shining, I was at a friend's house down the street, and I lived near a forest preserve, and it was like an October night or a fall night. It was very dark out. And I remember I had to walk home by myself, like pitch black, like dark suburban street. And I remember like sprinting home and literally seeing bats overhead and thinking that the headless horseman was going to come down my street from the forest and get me, which is another one, another Tim Burton I really like. And yeah, that was my first thing, I guess. What was yours?
Oh
Can I
man, well,
ask?
I grew up in the era of like, I was born in 1968, which is the same year that like Night of the Living Dead and
Yeah,
Rosemary's Baby came out. So
great.
I feel like I'm in a great place where I've gotten to grow up with the genre, but I also was
Totally.
watching the classics. So I mean, like Godzilla, Wolfman, stuff like that. But then, like I saw Halloween when I was 10 years old, 1978. Like
Wow.
our babysitter was supposed to take us to this cheesy Vincent Price movie. And instead, like, because she got the times wrong, we were like, oh, well, we'll just go see this other movie. Nobody knew what the hell Halloween was yet. And of course, all these 10-year-olds are just sitting there like, ah.
Halloween in theaters. That's epic.
Yeah,
I
it
love
was
that.
amazing. And
Sweet.
look, Halloween is back in theaters this
It
year.
is.
Halloween
I
is.
didn't see it. I didn't see it. Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the
No.
first two of this new
Same.
trilogy. Anyway. And also, like I say, you've got your Omnivorous Adam food channel.
Hmm.
Is there like what are some like go-to like Halloween treats that you've been conjuring over the years?
So it's always kind of a thing because, as the seasons come in, you want to kind of make like fun seasonal videos and content or recipes at least. And, it's fall, so things are transitioning to kind of like more heavy dishes, heavy food, like braised meats, different root vegetables, nice warming soups, things that are going to pack some meat on before the winter comes. At least that's kind of how I start to feel around this time of year. Dark beer, very important.
Yes,
And,
very.
I don't really have a Halloween specialty per se, but I will say last year I made this fondue where I took like just red food coloring and I just dyed it like bright red and just like made a big like kind of spicy like cheddar fondue. So it was like super vibrant red. I put a solid amount of food coloring in there. And then I took these like little fingerling potatoes and I like, gimmicky, like I kind of shoved pretzels to make like bugs. And this is very Pinteresty. And those were like the dippers and you could like dip them in the blood and like it's just like a fun kind of thing.
I feel like I saw something and I should have looked ahead of time, but like, didn't you do like a Freddy themed something one time? I mean, I remember hearing you reference Nightmare on Elm Street or
Oh,
Freddy.
it was probably in a voiceover. I was like, yeah, I think I said something along the lines of Freddy Krueger's wet dream. Like that was what like the blood would be or something. I think, yeah, but I haven't done any sort of like Nightmare on Elm Street food. We were thinking about doing, and I'll keep this short. We were thinking about doing like a themed sort of video for YouTube where it's like we make like a famous dish from a scary movie. And I remember looking up like famous scary movie foods and couldn't really find anything that resonated too well. And that was like, could potentially be a fun, cool video. But if you have any ideas, please let me know.
Oh, you and I are going to be talking. This
Okay.
this could be fun.
Sweet.
All right, cool. Well, hey, I mean, let's talk about the Black Phone.
The black one.
And thank you for picking it up. I appreciate it. So the movie is set in 1978,
Mhm.
and there's a series of child abductions going on in this small town, and they've labeled this the culprit the grabber, and we have our main character who is Finney, played by Mason Thames, and he and his sister Gwen, who's played by Madeline McGraw, they live at home with their alcoholic dad, who's played by Jeremy Davies. And there's clearly, well, not even, I mean, it's clearly some abuse going on at home. Dad's got issues. Mom has killed herself. And we later learn that she, like had some mental issues. And he's scared that his daughter Gwen is going to, exhibit the same kind of mental breakdown. But anyway, so a lot of Finney's classmates are being nabbed. And the day comes when, well, Finney gets grabbed. And we spend the better part of the movie kind of in this basement with the grabber. And that's played by Ethan Hawke. No surprise there, although we don't get to see his face pretty much for most of the movie. He's wearing these really eerie masks and talking in a high-pitched kind of childlike voice. It's super creepy. And it's the first time Hawke has played an out-and-out villain. And I think he does a terrific job.
An expensive masked actor. That's
right?
That's for sure. Yeah, no, I think I liked his character too. Honestly, I thought he did a good job at being a straight up, not pedophile, but creeper who could damn well be a pedophile.
Yeah.
I think he did a nice job. That's what I'll say about that. Are we just riffing right now?
I guess my first question was, because you were going to watch this movie anyway, what attracted you to it?
The fact that Ethan Hawke was the main bad guy, was, and just I heard it was kind of like, it's not every day that a more modern horror movie kind of like comes out that some people, at least some people, are even talking about.
Yeah.
So whenever that happens, I'm gonna watch it regardless. I don't care if people say it's like horrible. If people like, I'm gonna watch it. So that's kind of why, because it came out in July. I was like, I'm gonna save this for Halloween.
Yep.
And I did, and we watched it, and here we are. So
yeah. So have you seen Scott Derrickson's other films? Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Wait, Sinister, no?
Sinister as well.
Yeah. And then I liked Exorcism of Emily Rose when I was a kid. I love that.
Yeah.
I still love the scene when they're in the barn house, like, I am Belial. Like, that was the best. And what else? Sinister. I really liked Sinister.
Love Sinister. I just revisited it. I'm doing these series of talks down at the Chicago Public Library, and our last week is going to be about ghosts and hauntings and things like that. And I was like, I need to watch Sinister again. And I was like, this movie is so great. Like, there's so much going on. What was
the name? The demon's name? God.
Oh, Mr. Boogie. No.
Bagul. Right? Sinister.
Yes. But he goes by Mr. Boogie, I thought.
Maybe he went by Mr.
Yeah, the demon itself is called like Bagul or something.
Yeah.
But he goes by Mr. Boogie, I'm pretty sure.
Right. And we can keep this Black Phone centric, but one thing I'll say, I love when movies like reference like real like demons that like exist in like mythology and religion and stuff, because I love looking up the demon and like learning about like what their like specialties are and like why they're like, and like what religion they come from. So that was cool.
Well, and I remember thinking, man, like when I watched Exorcism of Emily Rose, I was like, this is really good. Like there are images and a great performance by the lead actress there, who later ended up in Dexter. But anyway, so I was like, but Derrickson's career has kind of gone up and down. He did.
I agree.
He did The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is just horrible. And then he did Sinister. And I was like, oh wait, he's back. And I didn't see Doctor Strange, and then now he's back, in the horror realm.
So it's interesting how he just pivoted to Marvel like that. That was weird. That's crazy. I don't know how that works. That's Hollywood stuff.
No idea how this works. Yeah. We were just talking about like the new Godzilla movies, and like each one of those big budgets have been directed by these little tiny indie guys who never had like, $2 to rub together. And it's like, here's $200 million, go. And you're like, okay, thanks. So anyway, back to the Black Phone.
Sure.
So it's based on a story by Joe Hill, which is Stephen King's son. And my initial feeling as I was watching this, because one of the motifs is that the Black Phone in question, that is in the basement area. And when Finney picks up the phone, he hears the voices of the murdered children. And I was like, this is so right out of a Stephen King novel.
Right.
And I'm like, this is the best Stephen King novel adaptation that wasn't written by Stephen King.
Well, it's his blood, right?
Yeah, exactly. Literally.
Yeah. I thought it seemed, in what I'll say, and it's kind of the theme of like how I'm going to like, honestly, like a lot of what I have to say about this movie is it seems like it would be a great book. I think they had to leave out a lot in the movie that was, in my opinion, quite destructive. Like, I think that it almost seems like we were watching a book and you'd be reading a movie at this point. It's like, there are so many characters and things that were done and choices that were put in the movie that made me think, if they just went in a little more depth, I'd understand this more. I'd get a little more value out of it. But I understand that you can't do that in an hour and a half, 2 hours. So, the book itself, like, for example, the brother's character, there was no point in that character. I don't know why it existed. The cokehead guy.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
He's sitting up there. He's like trying to figure it out. And it's like, there's scenes of him, like when it goes right, that one scene where it pans and he's like sitting on the couch trying to figure it out. And it goes right to the basement. And that's where Finn is. And Finn's underneath. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like maybe he'll do something. And then he just spoiler alerts. Are we allowed to?
Here, hang on. There we go.
Okay. Then he gets an axe to the dome. And I'm like, okay, like why did that guy exist? He didn't do anything other than to show that, Ethan Hawke is a murderous, crazy person, which we knew.
Yeah.
So it's just, it was a weird choice, but that's just one example that I thought, all the kids, and every kid had like a little unique backstory. So
Yep.
like I would care more about them if we knew more about them, but I understand
Sure.
you're not going to go into 8 backstories. It's kind of how I felt like I'm looking at my notes here, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt here when I was watching the movie. And I really, I mean, you can ask my friends, I'm not that critical of a guy, but I just like, when it comes to like this one, at least, it just felt like a little, like there needed to be more.
Sure.
What do you think?
I mean, well, would you have gone for a longer film?
I always like a longer movie. I'm in
Yeah.
it. Hit me with it. You know what I mean? Like, let's get everything on the table to tell the story.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. I feel like for me, I agree. Again, I felt like this is a Stephen King adaptation. Like this is the story, and you're doing your very best to get it on camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having watched so many Stephen King adaptations that don't work, it was nice to see one. I'm like going, this is actually, I see what you're doing here in terms of like, I really liked the mirroring of, like when the way they set up, like you got the phone and he's just hearing them, but we get to see them in the room with him.
Yeah,
there was cool. A lot of these motifs that I was like, okay, I'm actually on board with this. And I thought that the scene with Jane Ransom, who's also the character of Max, he's also the deputy in Sinister, that same actor.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, and so I was glad to see him back again, kind of, with Scott Derrickson. And I think for me, the reason for him being in the apartment upstairs is you're like, oh my God, the cops were just there. Like the cops were literally above where this is happening. Although we find out that, oh yes, that is true. That because spoiler alert. Anyway, we find out that yes, that it's directly above where the kids are held, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is for me that was suspenseful. And I also was kind of like just struck by the brazenness of the kidnappings. He's just out in the open with his black balloons,
right? Ripping them off the street in Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I get the sense that it didn't completely fly for you. What were some things you did like about it?
Soundtrack.
Oh man, killer soundtrack.
Great soundtrack. I was sitting there kind of like bumping a little bit. I'm like, all right, this is enough to kind of keep me around right now. I thought that was cool. Like I said, like the whole like Ethan Hawke character. I wish we learned a little bit more about him and like why he was doing this and all this kind of creepy background. They call him the Grabber. In going into this movie, I didn't know if it was going to be like more supernatural or if it was going to be sort of more thrillery, like sort of,
right.
Which I guess you can have a supernatural thriller, but you get the idea. And I didn't really know like what kind of to think. And I think it was an interesting mix of both because you kind of had like this real world guy who wasn't a devil worshiper, didn't have any supernatural crazy powers. He was just a creepo. And then you have the daughter who's kind of got this medium like ability that I interpreted her mom also had, and she was battling with it, and that's why she, iced herself. And it was an interesting bend, and I love supernatural stuff, so I had to kind of like put that at the side and like try to think of this with a different lens. But I'm always down for more ghosts, for more like Jesus, this is gonna be a bad soundbite, but like more of the dead kids on the screen. You know what I mean? Like creepier stuff, like dead living, like, you know what I mean? Ghosts and this and that. And I would have liked to have seen more of that. And other thing that I liked about it was just like the general time period. Like I really like, that late 70s, sort of before cell phones, no communications like that. Like there are so many things that I'm like, oh, why don't you try this? Why don't you do this? And I'm like, their technology just doesn't exist. So it's kind of like, it's simple and nice. And it's like, it's a good environment for creepy stuff to go down.
Well, and I get the sense that, like this was produced by Blumhouse, and kind of their business models, their budgets are usually about $10 million. So it means you have to scale things down. And I'm thinking about like Scott Derrickson, doing Doctor Strange with basically all the money in the world, and then him kind of imposing a limitation on himself. I'm like, I'm going to do all of this texture, and I'm going to do this storytelling, and I'm going to do it on a budget. You talked a little bit about the ghosts. I mean, what I kind of dug about it is that each one of them does have just enough of a kind of a thumbnail that we do identify, but they are, we never get a clear 3-dimensional image of them. They are just kind of these these wisps of things. You've seen Stand By Me, right?
Man, is that the one where they go on the adventure?
Yeah, they go and look for the body.
Yeah, the body.
So that's also a Stephen King adaptation. And there was something about the resilience of young kids. Like, I like the fact that our hero is a kid, you know? And like, I remember growing up and I was always just like I see, you know, adults getting taken out by monsters in movies. I'm like, the kids would totally get away with this because they're faster and they're stronger and they're smarter. And I felt like that was here. I was like going, we have a strong and resilient young kid who's outmatched, you know, physically by his aggressor, but he keeps going for it. You know, like he keeps looking and finding solutions. And I was like, this is the kind of kid, like if I was watching this movie as a kid, I'd be like, I totally identify with you. I would not go quietly. I would be working as hard as I could. I'd be trying everything I could. And he's not just screaming and cowering in a corner.
Yeah, I liked what did you say, Mason Thames? Thames. I think he did a really nice job. And you know, it's funny to kind of like talk about people's acting abilities because I certainly can't do that for any good reason. So all these kids are better than me in a lot of things probably. And this kid was great, but you know, I can't say that and I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but I can't say that for the rest. Like at the beginning of the movie, like that, the sister, like it was tough to watch. Like, what do you think? Sometimes when you put like lead roles in kids' hands, it's a risk.
It's a risky proposition.
And it took me out of the world a little bit, which is why I'm even mentioning it. But talking about like the whole kid thing, but no, yeah, Finn, that dude is, you know, the character that he played, Finn, was a badass and a brave kid. And that's kind of all I have to say about that. I loved when he was punching him in the face at the end.
Man.
yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, sure.
Cool. So yeah, again, I get that, you know, thank you for being as positive as you could. I get that it wasn't your thing, and that's okay. I'm glad you dug Sinister because that is one of my faves.
Me too. 2012, great.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to believe that movie is 10 years old. That was another reason why I had to, because I saw it in the theaters, and I mean, the lawnmower scene. What more do I have to say? You know, I was like, what just happened?
Yeah, that movie's creepy.
Did you ever see the sequel?
If I did, it was years ago.
Because I have not. I have it waiting I have to watch it before.
Oh, are you?
We talk about it. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. I just, you know, it's just kind of like that era. Like, for example, Sinister, you got Insidious, like around that time too. You know, I think the second Insidious, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't too bad, but sometimes you just want to leave it at that, you know? So I'm curious. I'm curious what you have to say about Sinister 2.
It's funny because I only saw the first Insidious, and now I'm going to be working my way through the Insidious movies as well.
Nice.
So I'll have a full report for you when I see you know, at the bench.
I liked Insidious. I liked Insidious a lot, even like some of the sequels and stuff that a lot of people weren't into, but I just love that universe.
Well, you talk about jump scares, like it's like.
But it's also like super like art, and we're talking about the black phone, but it was just super like artistic. It was just like the demon was so weird. Like at the end of that, like when he's like in there, like spinning his wheel, doing his thing, sharpening his whatever. I'm like, what an interesting choice to have that be the like main demon antagonist guy. And it was just like, I love when like horror movies you don't have to have a big budget to make a really good horror movie. You know, they can be creepy in their own ways. Insidious probably had a big budget. It was James Wan, I think.
No, actually it was pretty low budget.
Really? So it was just like the first movie with low budget that comes to mind. That's top tier for me is It Follows too.
Oh man, so good.
God, talk about like artistic like decisions that were just made so well, and how you can make just like an old like woman walking in a field like the scariest thing ever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it was great. So,
and you just know you're in the hands of somebody who's a great storyteller, a great filmmaker, you know, like the way that movie spins it out. And no, don't worry about that's all we do on this channel, just talk about
tangents.
Movies. And I was like, remember that movie? I thought it was a good movie. I know we're not talking about that movie right now, but hey. But yeah, no, I was just talking because I don't think money, I sometimes feel like restrictions are what create that forces the creators to come up with something original. Like we're talking about James Wan's *Malignant*, And I was like, the James Wan who came up with the super low budget Saw movie, like, I don't think that guy exists anymore.
No.
And
No.
it's like Malignant was fine for what it was, but I almost wish that James Wan had said, like, I'm going to have to make this happen on like $5 million. Go.
Yeah, that would be cool, because then you get like the sort of, it's one of those things where people's careers, they change and they grow, and given more opportunities, and it's kind of hard to say no to that $20 million.
Of course, you can offer me $20 million. I will endeavor to do something.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I get it. One thing I will say back to Black Phone though, and this is probably my last comment about it, like, unless you have questions, then I'm happy to talk about other stuff too. But the last thing I'll say is I really, really, really don't like when horror movies end happy.
Sure.
I really don't like that. I like being like, oh, or like disturbed afterwards, because it leaves, it's one of those things that, like, you're not going to remember like what they say, but you'll remember like how they made you feel. It's kind of the same thing.
For sure.
And I remember like just watching this and being like, oh, why did they do that? Like, why did, like, I was like, man, I wish it was like some Descent type energy where like everything was just grim and messed up. And
see, what's funny is I think I watched so many of these that do end on a downer note that this was kind of, for me, I was like, oh, wow, there's actually hope here. I
can go to bed.
Yeah. I mean, you think about, in some ways, I think about like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original from 74, where, Marilyn Burns is escaping in the back of the pickup truck. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, good, she got away. But she's messed up. Like, that is not, like, this is not a good ending at all. Like, yes, she lives. And I kind of feel like, Finney is going to be bearing some scars from this one for a while. He's never not going to be that guy, the kid who was grabbed by the grabber.
Yeah, but then he had like the confidence to go up and talk to his crush. He's like, hey, it's like, I don't know, this guy seems like he's doing pretty damn well. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, all right, go get it, Finn.
He was just high on adrenaline.
Yeah, maybe, hopefully. But like, I think that you have a good point there, where it's like, you can end with a positive message with a happy message, but a lot of the way that you communicate that message, if the main character escapes and she's good and fine, but her entire family was massacred by like a laser wielding zombie ape, like, you know what I mean? Like, she's probably going to be messed up. And if there's eerie music as she's like riding into the distance or this and that, you know what I mean? Like, kind of how you close it off and the decisions you make. And this one was like so happy. I was like, did we just watch a Disney movie in this one? Like, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, so.
I love that you brought up The Descent. Because that is one of my favorites from Neil Marshall. Have you seen Dog Soldiers?
No.
That's his werewolf movie. That was his first movie. Sick. Just before that. That one is 20 years old this year.
Wow.
I don't even know if you have a DVD player anymore, but I will.
I have a PlayStation. I got a PlayStation.
Okay, I'll be sliding some Dog Soldiers your way.
I'm adding it to the. Oh, you're gonna be sliding. Okay, well, I'm still.
I'll just bring it on over.
And then what was I gonna say? I forgot.
Dark energy endings.
There was something about The Descent. Never mind.
All right, fine. Well, that'll be the next show. We'll do that for the next show.
Exactly.
All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up here. I get the sense that we have a solid thumb this way, leaning down from you.
Yeah, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No. What am I going to say? So it's funny on the Halloween list. I've been kind of doing it on my Instagram, but because I feel like it's kind of like what people want, and it puts me through a mental exercise. I hate rating stuff 1 out of 10. Okay. Right. I just don't know why. I just don't, but I do. So for this, what we started doing is like, double thumbs down, 1 thumbs down, halfway, 2 thumbs or 1 thumbs up, double thumbs up.
Great.
And with this one, I'd probably give it a solid this.
Okay. So it's like a 3 out of 5.
I'm not going to tell people not to like ignore it if you like horror movies, but
it's not your jam at all.
No.
Yeah. No. And I think I honestly, like my other friend, Aaron, and I talk about that. I think good and bad is almost like they're not really descriptors for a movie anymore. It's like what you like and what you don't like. And if you can articulate why you didn't like it, then awesome, because you might be like, hey, all of the things you didn't like about it, those are exactly the things I will like about it.
It's just like
And-
food. You
yeah.
know,
Well,
not
I
to
was,
make the
I was
connection there.
just going to make that connection.
Yeah, it's the same. It's,
You're like,
it's a
why
very
don't you
similar thing.
like this? This tastes great. And it's like, no, it doesn't actually.
Yeah, everybody's got different tastes, and no matter how refined you think your palate is in terms of horror movies or food, like everybody just likes different stuff, and you got to know who you're cooking for.
Totally.
So
Awesome. Hey, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, this is Scare-A-Thon 2022. We are benefiting the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project. The link to donate is below in the description. It's a very important cause to myself and my guests. So if even $5 makes a difference. So if you have it in you, go ahead and make a donation. Adam, we'll have you on the show again, I'm sure. Thank you so much for coming on.
I'm in the neighborhood, Thanks for having me.
It's true. All right, guys. Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep sharing the scare.